Welcome to our world. Won't you come on in? Waiting just for you. Welcome to our world.
Well, here we are, another Tuesday.
I've been bamboozled.
Another Tuesday.
Bamboozled, I tell you.
Yep.
Another Tuesday. It appears I'm catching a cold
Oh, no.
or I have a sinus infection.
Is this like a typical spring cold thing?
I don't know, because everybody's like, oh, it's allergies because it's spring, but I've never really gotten seasonal allergies.
You know what
so I
causes
don't know.
allergies?
What?
Allergens.
And what are those?
Things that cause allergies.
Oh, well, there we go. That was the most Jeopardy-like answer and question you possibly could have asked. Well, what is your contribution to today's episode?
No,
if this is a complaint,
we're not gonna
we're gonna wait until the end for it.
Well, let's start with the history. Wait, do you have the?
No, this is Tuesday. We need a top. No, I don't have that. First of all,
Wait a
Where's
minute.
that?
We only do Tuesdays now.
I know. So we need a topic, and then we go into everything
Okay.
don't know
if this can be a whole topic.
That's why I'm going to stop you, because if it's not, then let's save it for later.
Okay, what's your topic then?
Is that a list of complaints?
No, no. This is my original podcast ideas list, and probably a lot of the stuff we already covered.
Complaints. Oh, most of them are complaints. Let's be real.
No, well, that's my life. You just summarized my life.
Well, here's what I want to talk about today. What I want to talk about. Well, I have a question.
Go ahead.
What is the best TV show of all time, and why is it Boy Meets World? Go ahead.
No. Well, here's the thing.
What
if we were actually covering that genre or whatever of TV show, it would be a different one.
What would it be?
Which was earlier.
Seinfeld.
And no, that was my first thought when you said the best TV show of all time. That was my first thought. I'm trying to remember the name of the show. I'm trying to remember the name of the show.
It can't be that good if you don't remember it.
No, but it was kind of like it wasn't exactly like Boy Meets World, but it was like.
Oh, are you talking about the Wonder Years?
The Wonder Years. The Wonder Years.
No,
that was
the Wonder Years, in my opinion, are. And this is going to be so controversial because I know people that you obviously like the show, people that listen to this that have watched that and liked it.
I haven't seen it in a long time, but.
For me, it's unwatchable. I think that is so. It's just maybe it's the way it's shot. Maybe it's partly the acting.
Well, so what?
I just can't. I cannot watch. I've tried watching that show.
What about it?
I just tried to explain.
But why is it unwatchable?
I just tried to explain that. Maybe it's the way it's shot. Maybe it's the acting. I don't know. It's just so cringy to me. And I don't like it at all.
Wait, you think it's cringy, but you don't think Boy Meets World is cringy?
No.
Boy Meets World is very, and it's not like I don't like it. Maybe it has to do with the age you were when it was out.
Meets World.
Okay, stop. No, it's
You're probably right. It is an age thing.
Yeah, because it's very. I'm trying to think. I'm doing the same thing you did. Maybe it's the way it's shot. Maybe,
I know.
No,
here's
I'm not
obviously
say that,
Boy Meets World. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's a great show. Is it the best show of all time? Debatable. This was mostly to get this conversation
a good show,
started.
Though. It was kind of cool.
It's for sure in my personal top 5 shows of all time. I think it's a sitcom.
Coming of age.
Yeah, it's a sitcom, and it follows this boy, Corey. He's 10 or 11 maybe when the show starts, somewhere around, maybe young. I don't know. It's around, he's in middle school when the show starts.
Young, yeah.
And by the time the show is ending, has he actually graduated? I don't remember. I haven't seen this in a while. Yeah, he's graduated college and he's living his life in Philadelphia.
Actually graduated college. Wow,
and
I forgot.
Yeah, no, it follows their whole trajectory.
Right,
and I just feel so it's a sitcom. So you have to go into it knowing that it's a sitcom, obviously, because that's a certain style and there are things that come with that. I think the jokes and the humor is genuine. There are moments where you're actually laughing out loud. It's funny enough. It's not like, not to be mean, but Full House, I think, is really like the jokes are really cringy. Like some of them are just too like so cliche, and like you see them coming from a mile away. I like Full House. I'll watch it, but I'm just saying. I don't think Boy Meets World is like that. I think all of the characters are very likable, and I think the storylines, with the exception of the one where he, spoiler alert, cheats on Topanga with that girl at the ski lodge. Besides that storyline, all the storylines are so good, and it's like true to the characters, and we see their whole progression, and it's just like nice. It's funny, but it's also heartfelt, and obviously teaches you life lessons.
That's what I'm gonna say. It's very focused on a lesson. You always learn a lesson. And what's the I can't think of his name.
Mr. Feeney.
Mr. Feeney, who's played by
Why
the
are you
actor.
Pointing at me? You should know this.
I can't think of his name. It's William something, right?
Yes.
William something is his name.
Great.
Who played
John Adams in 1776.
In the 1972 movie,
the best movie of all time,
and in the actual Broadway play.
Oh yeah, I always forget that.
The actual Broadway play.
So what?
He's pretty cool.
What don't you like about Boy Meets World? Why is it not?
I'm just saying it's formulaic. It's very like it's like
true.
Here's the lesson. So it's a little bit. I hate to use the word cringy because I don't really think of it that way, but it's kind of like. The beginning, there's something happens. Mr. Feeney says something. We have a talk with Mr. Feeney.
See, I think...
And he explained. And then...
Okay,
right.
It is very formulaic. I'll agree with that. And like the way the lesson, you can tell from the very beginning what the lesson, quote unquote, is going to be.
Right.
But I also think there's a sort of comfort in that.
Yeah.
Because when you're watching it, from like, first couple minutes, whatever Corey does wrong or whatever whoever does wrong or something happens and you're like, I see where this is going. And that's a sense of comfort because you know where this journey is going to take us.
Yeah.
And there are some bumps along the way that maybe you don't expect, but you end up where you thought you were going to, unless it's a 2-part episode, in which case you're left on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like such a comfort show and it's funny and
Yeah, it is. And I still watch it and learn stuff from it because I still make the same mistakes that Corey stopped making in middle school.
Okay, so what is your favorite TV show of all time then?
Here's the
Not
there are
thinking
so many
about that.
Well, there are so many different I've never really thought to myself, "Oh, this is my favorite TV show."
All right, then
time.
I'll continue.
But wait a minute. With that said,
he must
monologue. Like Seinfeld, obviously. Yeah, I like Seinfeld because it's just so out there, and it's
I think the funniest show.
Yeah,
maybe I've ever seen.
It's genuinely funny.
You're laughing out loud.
And it's not like slapstick funny, which I've never been into that.
I'm sorry, I feel like I'm cutting you off. I'm just excited about this topic.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
But it's also because, their whole tagline is a show about nothing or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's like real stuff that happens in,
exactly.
a 20-something or 30-something's daily life.
Exactly.
And so it's relatable. And as stuff is happening, like whatever girl George is dating that he's having an issue with, it's like so funny.
That's what I'm saying. And the characters themselves are funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like you've said this before. You can literally see where Jerry Seinfeld is having trouble not laughing at certain times.
Yes.
You could tell he's like on the verge of laughing. Yes. And some of the things are just they're just so out there. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Which makes it great.
I agree.
But there are other shows that I've like watched a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And there are a lot, don't get me wrong, like, especially now, there are like, whatever the latest series is on Netflix or Hulu that everybody gets into. And I just don't watch those. I typically do not watch those.
Go ahead.
But Forensic Files,
which
is everywhere for free now.
Not.
Like those type of actual crime shows where they talk about what happened and all that.
I was just trying to have a nice day.
And when you were little, I'd put those on, not knowing that you were scared to death of these things and that you would have nightmares.
I want to, for reference, I want everybody to know that he would literally, because sometimes like we would wind up falling asleep on the couch in our living room or whatever to these shows. I would literally for years of my life be forced to fall asleep to Forensic Files, okay?
I didn't know you had any problem with that.
What?
Even to the point, because
even
that's
if
why
I didn't have a problem in the beginning, you don't think that constant, like, psychological reinforcement would affect me? What do you mean?
For like a preschool child. And, you know, when we'd be going to your basketball practices, driving in some unknown wooded area, and I'd be like, this looks like a pretty secluded area.
Mm-hmm. And every
little
time,
did I know that you were, joking, little did I know that you feared for your life.
Every time I would laugh so that, you know, to calm.
Don't make any quick moves.
Yeah.
Just
Can't
play
let
along.
him know. But inside, I was concerned. Forensic Files is not. I think the reason, not that I don't like true crime stuff or whatever, but Forensic Files it goes so hard into the actual details, like the gruesome details of these cases.
Right.
And there's no embellishment. It's literally just awful. The entire episode, start to finish.
When you say awful, you mean because it goes into the details.
Not awfully produced. It's obviously it's very decent,
right. It's very well
told
produced,
story
and in cases where they have reenactments, they're not like bad actors or anything like that. And it's more based on they're talking to the actual investigators or the prosecutor or whatever. But the main thing I like about it, not that I don't find some of the forensics interesting, right? Like I do, but, and this goes back to my outlook on law, right? It always ends, they caught the person. They don't have episodes like Unsolved Mysteries where they just don't know. They never found out what happened to this person.
If only...
Like, I want to know that they caught the person. And in fact, if I watch an episode of it, the only question sometimes I have is, like, they arrested the person, they're in prison, or they were sentenced to death. My question is, so was the sentence carried out? You know, like, I want to know what happened. And because these are all reruns now, if it's I don't think it's still on anymore, but because they're all reruns, I want to know what happened since 2016 or whenever this episode aired, you know?
Well,
justice. I want justice.
Maybe that should be a new concept for them, revisiting Forensic Files.
That's an
Revisited,
idea.
Where they revisit episodes. I think... I didn't realize, because at first I was going to say, well, there is a show called Unsolved Mysteries. I'm pretty sure if that's what you're looking for. But
no, that's the thing I didn't realize. About that show.
I didn't realize that Forensic Files had everything wrapped up nicely at the end. For some reason, I don't remember. I mean, I don't. I remember awful things about that show. No.
The killer was still on the run when you...
That's what I'm saying. Because there are very specific things that I remember from that show that I try very hard to forget, and I just cannot. Like, not just how it was filmed or something, like specific...
He decapitated the victims.
And like this woman, and I wasn't going to say this, but you should all have to deal with this now that I have to deal with this for the past 20 years of my life. This woman that chained, do you remember this one? That chained her children to the bathtub, and all she fed them was like lard until they, oh my God.
No, I don't remember that one.
Anyway, okay.
Man, I got to find that episode.
So I much prefer... Because I was going to say I preferred this because it has a nicer ending, but Criminal Minds is also one of my favorite shows, which is funny because I obviously don't like, the gore and
that's extremely gory.
I mean, it is, but it's more for me because I'm a big like mysteries person, so it's more about seeing the psychological process that you go through, like that the people on the show go through to get to who the killer is, you know?
You just like the actors.
No, I mean, I do. Matthew Gray Goobler.
That's what I thought.
The love of my life. He just doesn't know it, but that's okay.
Goobler.
But it's, I mean, again, I'm not going to say that's the best show of all time. There are obviously issues with it. You reach a certain season and it's kind of like we're repeating ourselves and all that. But in general, I think it's well done. Most of the characters I've liked on there, and it's usually wrapped up nicely unless it's like a longer season arc. But then even then, at the end it's going to be a happy ending,
right? And
or not.
And it's a good show. And the thing is, I've watched it because you wind up watching it, and so I've seen a lot of the episodes, and I like it. I do, but it's an example of something I probably wouldn't watch on my own, just because I can't. It's hard for me to get into watching a series, just like
I don't understand
like a movie. Well, most times I would rather be learning something most times. So that's why you find me watching things. I'm usually watching YouTube videos, and it could be about AI. It could be about.
Oh, you're so evolved. No, I feel like it's different though, because the things that I watch.
Evolved. I am at a higher level than the rest of the species.
You just don't know how to enjoy things. And that's also not good, because I feel like watching Criminal Minds, you do learn things. You learn about how they catch these guys. You learn about different psychological disorders and issues that people have. I have diagnosed you based on what I've watched in Criminal Minds.
Yes.
I know exactly what's wrong with you. You just won't listen to me.
And you're very concerned. It probably explains why you would be concerned as we're driving and I say, this looks like a secluded area.
Exactly. But this is also the same reason that Sherlock is one of my favorite shows, starring the other love of my life, Mr. Benedict Cumberbatch, who does not know how to say the word penguins. Have you ever watched that video? I think I've showed you that video.
Penguins?
Yeah, he says penguins. Please look it up. If you guys have not heard him try to say this, it's hilarious. And he didn't even realize that he wasn't saying it correctly until afterwards when, I don't know, it was a whole thing. But he says penguins, and it's very funny.
Yep.
But that show, I think, is like expertly done. I don't have any complaints about that show whatsoever.
Yeah, it's good. And the same thing, actually, we should watch some more episodes of that, because I've watched a few. Was that only one season?
Mm-mm.
And the episodes,
it had
a couple
at least
seasons?
3 seasons.
And but they're long episodes,
They're
right?
like an hour and a half.
An hour and a half. So it's almost, it's basically like you're watching a short movie, right?
Well, it's a regular length movie. But a movie's an hour and a half.
Well, no, I think I think 2 hours. Typical movie, 2 hours.
Typical. Okay. I'm going to look this up right now.
Yeah, see what the average,
Oh, I will.
What the average. But yeah, that was very good. And there were a lot of episodes I didn't see.
Why is the first thing that comes up? I've typed in what's the average length, and the first thing, what's the average length of a newborn? I don't understand. No.
The average
what's
length
the
of
average
a newborn
length of
is
a
2
movie?
hours.
Let's see. Here, the average length of popular films has increased over time, with some citing a rise from 1 hour and 21 minutes in the 1930s to 1 hour and 47 minutes in 2022. I win.
No, 47 is closer to 2 hours than 1.5 hours.
Yeah, but if you take the average of these two, it's an hour and a half. The average of these two is an hour and a half.
You can't take an average of the movies that are old movies.
Anyway, why? Whatever. Because they don't exist anymore. They're gone.
How long is the Green Mile?
You can't just pick a random movie.
Titanic.
How long is The Lion King? 1.5. What do you mean?
Let's take a couple of the most popular movies of all time.
And maybe they're longer. That doesn't. You can't just cherry pick.
Does that include animated movies?
I don't know.
Well, because obviously animated movies are shorter.
Yeah, they are. What?
Okay. So anyway, moving on.
Oh my word! That was the worst argument you've ever tried to make.
What else do we segue into now?
Let's take any Marvel movie.
They still make segues.
They're all they're all like over 2 hours. If you do that, then the average length of a movie is going to be like 2.5 hours.
I think in general, when I think movie, I think 2 hours. I think I'm going to have to devote 2 hours of my life to this movie.
Anyway, fine. This doesn't even matter. I don't know. Those are my. I'm trying to think of other shows. Arrested Development, I really liked the first few seasons. And then when they tried to do the reboot on Netflix, it just did not work. It fell flat.
Yeah, never really. I watched, I think, a couple episodes of that.
I think it's
really
really
got
funny.
Into it. No. Come think it. I don't think I did ever watch that. I think I've never watched that. It can't be good, therefore.
No. Once Upon a Time Great show. It's very, I think it's very cheap. Well, okay. Well, for reference, what had happened was I started watching that after at the time, obviously, I don't remember when it was specifically, after I had just gotten out of a relationship. And so I was sad. And that was like my comfort thing to watch.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's kind of like, that's that kind of a show.
You're right.
Where you're not going to, you're not going to quote unquote learn anything. You're not going to, it's just, you just watch it. You like enjoy it for what it is.
But that's the same thing. After season 3 was so good. First season's pretty slow. Season 2's okay. Season 3's the best one. It just like kind of drops off after that, and you're just watching.
It almost seems like with like that series, right? Some of them, they start off with a plan, like sort of a mid to longer term plan, and once they get to where they've gotten to the end of that, they just start like, well, what do we add now?
Right.
Kind of like when they make a movie and then they say, oh, the movie is really popular. Now we have to make a sequel. And so they have to kind of come up with something, and you can tell it's kind of contrived.
It's just not, and they're just kind of, and you can tell, because with shows like that, they reach a point where they're just kind of repeating and going back to older themes, and there's not really anything new. So that was disappointing, but still, I think the first few seasons are really good.
Yeah. Yep.
What other shows?
I mean, a lot of people say like for instance, Friends. Friends was okay. I don't think it was great.
I agree. I've seen all of Friends, and I think it's all right. It's decent. I understand why people like it, but I don't understand why it's as big. I think Will and Grace. Have you ever watched Will and Grace?
I've watched a few episodes. I've never gotten into it.
I think it's pretty funny.
Yeah. I
think the characters were all casted perfectly.
Yeah. That's the plural of cast is cast. I know if I don't say that, somebody will say it, so I have to at least say that.
Okay, great. What other show do you have?
You're the grammar person. Come on.
Okay, great. What other show do you have?
That's it. Probably the Powerpuff Girls.
Best show of all time, without a doubt.
Mojo Jojo is the best villain of all time. Actually, Bubbles as Mojo Jojo is the best villain
Bubbles cameo
of all
as
time.
Mojo Jojo. Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Yeah. There are probably so many good shows that we're not even.
I know. Right now, I feel like I'm completely blanking.
Yeah. I mean,
the
especially
Crown,
newer ones.
The Crown is really good, but I also think it's the same thing, because with The Crown, it's obviously about the British monarchy, and it starts with when Queen Elizabeth II takes the throne, and so the first 2 seasons are when she's younger. And then the next 2 seasons, they have a completely different cast because they've jumped forward in time. And then the final, or the most recent 2 seasons, same thing. They jumped forward and got another cast again. And not that the later seasons, the cast was fine, but I really feel like the first 2 seasons of that are really solid.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think it's like, because I think at one point they tried to sue, or said that they were going to sue for like defamation and stuff, Netflix, because there are parts of it that are true, and then parts that Netflix has admitted that they just kind of added to embellish and all that.
Right.
But it's still interesting to see, kind of, even though it's embellished it
blurs the line between entertainment and history,
right? Because you're talking about like learning stuff. You learn a lot of stuff. No, I'm not talking about like gossip wise. I'm talking about like how the monarchy functions, and like with the prime minister and their whole relationship and stuff.
I think the problem probably is there are so many people that have no clue about the actual history, that when they watch something like that, to them it's all history, right? And then they say the history is written by the victors, whatever. A lot of times I think history is written by Hollywood now, right? Or history, maybe before Hollywood, history was written by the authors, right? And if so in other words, it takes on what they want it to take on, and you never really know if it's true.
Yeah.
Or how much of it is true.
Oh, were you going to say something? You took a deep breath.
No. I think
I was just going to say, I agree with you. I'm sure there are a lot of shows that we're not really thinking, because I just had this down as as a topic idea. I didn't actually have a list of shows or anything. I'm just talking about this, what I'm thinking of right now.
This is off the top, right? And
so whichever shows you all are your favorite shows, we'd love to know.
When you said it, the first one that popped in my head was Seinfeld.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, I agree.
And you know the weird thing? I'm not, like, if I'm going to watch a movie, I'm not the kind of person that's like, we'll look for a comedy first. I just don't. I like dramatic, tearjerker kind of movies, not chick flick movies, just to be clear.
Right, because you're a man.
No, I just don't.
I can't wait for our episode on sexism. It's coming up, everyone.
No, because I just don't like those.
And misogyny. I just can't wait.
I just don't like those kind of movies. It's not, not that I can't watch them. I just, typically, if I'm sitting down to watch a movie, I'll look for something that has really good reviews. Okay.
There are plenty of chick flicks that have really good reviews.
And come on, like I'm not saying
what?
Some of them.
There are.
I'm just. But speaking of formulaic, they're very formulaic. If nobody else is around and I just have to pick a movie that I'm going to watch, I'm going to go more for, like I said, something that's really, I don't know, like The Green Mile, a movie like that.
All right. Well, maybe we'll have an episode on movies. I think what is interesting is with shows, it's kind of like because I was thinking about, what makes a good show? And you can obviously, in general, I think, you obviously need a good storyline, something that's not super obvious maybe, and something that hooks the viewers, and good casting, because that's so important. If you don't have the right people, it like really messes up the vibe of the show or whatever. But besides that, I don't really know, because, sitcoms are so much different from dramas and everything. Because I'm talking about, the best show of all time, Boy Meets World, is on, or I'll take even Seinfeld. It's even on the other side, is like Seinfeld versus The Crown. Right. Those are two completely different things.
Don't you think you have to, whether it's a comedy, whether it's a dramatic series, and this would go for movies or TV. It's like you have to connect with one or more of the characters.
Right.
Like, I feel like it's the strong connection to the characters. And it's not
They're relatable.
Same. It's not right. It's not the same in a comedy, because it's not like, if it's dramatic, maybe you connect on a very low level, like you empathize with the character or whatever. With Seinfeld, it's not like you empathize. Empathy's not the right word, but you can relate, right? Like you're saying, some of this, with George, some of the dumbest stuff, some of the random off the wall stuff that they come up with, right? So, like, in addition to like really good story writing and the production and all that, I think it's the characters. But I think we should move on to This Week in History.
Welcome to This Week in History, everyone. Okay, so I think these are all comments from the immigration one.
Wait, I thought you said This Week in History.
Oh.
No,
guys,
do the comments.
I'm
do the
ill.
comments, and then we'll do This Week.
No, I'm ill. I've already played the list, or the This Week in History music. I need
This Week in Listener Comments.
I need Dayquil. Okay. This Week in History, to clarify. 1980. Post-it notes are sold in stores for the first time.
Whoa, get out. I didn't know that.
1980.
I just assumed, I mean, I never remember seeing them in school, obviously. And I just assumed that from when I started like working regular in an office, they always existed.
You know what's crazy is in here it says, in 1968, an engineer accidentally created a low-grade reusable adhesive. He immediately saw the value in his discovery, but it took several years for others at the company to see the use for it. Why does it just say an engineer? What was his name?
That's pretty
And
sad.
I don't, because if you've all ever seen Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion, a great movie, mind you, they say his name, the inventor of the Post-it, and I don't remember what it is. And I don't know why.
Is that the adhesive? So that's the adhesive that they're talking about.
Is the Post-it, yes.
Okay, yeah.
But why does it just say an engineer?
Yeah.
What?
Well, the only thing, you peel a Post-it note off and then you can stick it to something, right?
Right.
But I mean, that wears out pretty fast. Like, in other words, if you take it off there and stick it on something else, you could do that a couple times, but Eventually it dries out.
But yeah, that was the whole point of the Post-it.
Because you could do the same thing with Scotch tape, right? You could tape something and say, let me take it off there and
tape it to something else. That's a whole thing, though. That's a whole thing. That's a whole process.
Maybe it was marketing.
I don't think it was. I think the Post-it is a great product.
No,
you use it because the Post-it, you think about, you just needed something really quick that you needed to write something down so you wouldn't forget to do it. So you wrote it down and you ripped it off the notepad and you put it like on your computer to remind you, when I come back from lunch, this is the first thing I have to do. And you see it right when you sit down. No, and then you throw it away, and you throw it away when you're finished, and then it doesn't matter that it's not sticky anymore because that's all you needed it for.
You're more organized than me. That's why you probably appreciate it more than I do.
Okay, moving on.
I appreciate it, but not as much as you.
In 1994, I was born. That's not what this is, though.
It's on the calendar. Wow.
The Rwandan genocide starts. Oh, no.
Triggered by your birth.
Well, no, obviously this wasn't my birth month anyway, but that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
In 1935, Congress establishes the Works Progress Administration. What the heck is that? Do you know?
Sounds like something to do with jobs. Sounds like something to do with creating jobs. I don't know.
Established under the Emergency Relief Appropriation Act as a means of creating government jobs for the unemployed. The WPA employed more than 8.5 million people on 1.4 million public projects before it was disbanded in 1943.
So here, right now, that, I guess there's a question of, should the government be doing that? Shouldn't they be doing that? But it probably, for short term, is a good thing, right? Like if the alternative is we're going to have these a million homeless people, millions of homeless people, and they're going to be starving to death, or we can do this, and we need this stuff to be done anyway. It's like great. Or the alternative also is, if we can just give these people money for doing nothing, or we can give them a job, that's much better option than just giving people money. So,
yes. In 1939, Marian Anderson sings on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial.
What, on?
To a crowd of 75,000 and a live radio audience of millions. Although Anderson was an international superstar in the 1930s, there were places in the United States where a black woman was simply not welcome, no matter how famous. What surprised Anderson and many other Americans was that one such place was Constitution Hall, owned and operated by the Daughters of the American Revolution. When the group refused to allow Anderson to perform because of her skin color, it lost one of its most influential members, First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. Roosevelt and other women quit the DAR in protest. The invitation to perform at the Lincoln Memorial came from Secretary of the Interior Harold L. Ikes, is that how you say it? Who said in his introduction of Anderson that, quote, "Genius draws no color line."
Yeah. It's so hard to believe when you hear stuff like that. So now it's so hard to believe that they would come out and oppose her and specifically say, we're opposing her because she's black. We don't want her to be able to perform because she's black. I find it legit hard to believe that happened. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm saying I can't wrap my mind around that a group could come out and seriously state that. And then what? Be surprised when people leave your group? Do you get what I'm saying? I think you're looking at me like you don't understand my point.
No, I understand your point. It's just that if you look back on American history specifically, there are many, many groups and people that said that. So I find it hard to believe that you're. But I guess I
always picture those as more like marginalized groups, not. You know what I mean? Not like mainstream. And I guess that's the point. Back then, they were pretty mainstream. So it's just weird.
You say you like learning things. I feel like you need to learn more about history. Okay.
Which is written by?
1953. First color film in 3D premieres. What? In 1953?
Well, 3D.
Am I not understanding?
Well, I'm saying it's not the first color. At first, when you said that, I thought the first color film. Boy, that can't be right.
The first color film in 3D premiere.
Right. So
why are you not amazed by this?
So the first 3D film. I'm not amazed because I remember, I don't know, somewhere in the history of my mind. I remember like in the 50s, I guess, that 3D movies were a big deal because it was revolutionary at the time, you know?
I just don't know. It was the horror film House of Wax.
Oh, yeah.
The first black and white 3D film to be released was Man in the Dark, which premiered just 2 days before House of Wax. So the first 3D film in general was Man in the Dark, but the first color film in 3D was House of Wax.
So the black and white 3D film was 1951?
No, it was also 1953. It was 2 days
before. Oh, 2 days. I
before.
was thinking 2 years. That's really weird.
In 1803, French Foreign Minister Talleyrand offers to sell Louisiana Territory to the United States.
Did we take him up on it?
Historians claim that the Louisiana Purchase was one of the most defining events in creating the modern United States, alongside creation of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution.
Oh, so we did buy the Louisiana. That's cool.
Are you trying to make a joke?
Is he? No.
You are.
So was it a good deal?
No.
Deal or no deal?
Okay.
It was a deal.
In 1864, Confederate troops massacre Union soldiers.
Why did they do that?
Well, that's what they were doing. Confederate troops under the command of Nathan Bedford Forrest massacred hundreds of surrendering Union soldiers at Fort Pillow on the Mississippi River. There were 580 Union soldiers defending the fort. More than half were slaughtered. A third of those killed were black troops.
Oh, my God. So they were surrendering.
Yeah.
And they killed them.
Yeah. Also, they could keep their slaves. Wild.
Yeah, but why? But they were surrendering.
Yeah, but, it's a war. That stuff
this
just
sounds
doesn't
very
work.
weird, and you said a third of them were black, right?
Yes, that's what I said.
But that's even weird, because why would, okay, if they believed in slavery, why wouldn't they say, we're now going to take you and make you our slaves?
Because they knew that all these people would continue to fight for their cause, even though they were surrendering.
Not if
they were surrendering from the battle.
I don't know.
That doesn't mean they were
that's
surrendering the cause.
Isn't it? And again, this is one of those things. It's so hard to believe that there was a civil war in this country.
That's what I think we all should learn more about.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Moving on to
Listener feedback. Yeah.
Listener feedback. Finally, I can't wait. I clearly wanted to be here the whole time.
I'm just looking forward to the airing of grievances.
Okay. Someone said, my view is that immigration should just be completely open. The only reason that doesn't work right now is because of taxes and free handouts. Get rid of taxes and free handouts, and then let anyone in who wants to come in. The people who believe in democracy, freedom, liberty, and a society where they can chase their dreams will still want to come here. The people who want free handouts will no longer be motivated to come. I think that this is the most idealistic response to a question I have ever heard in my entire life.
Right. And I could not disagree with this more.
Right.
I think. And the reason is, I think, okay, the people that are coming here, I think they're not only coming here for free handouts, right? If you even take an idealistic view, and I think this is the truth, most people who are coming here for literally for freedom, and they're coming here for a job, right? They're coming here because they want to be able to survive. And obviously free handouts are bad as far as that goes, but we still have lots of jobs, and people still, even in the current environment, people look at this country as a land of opportunity, right?
Right.
And not because things are maybe so great here, but because the bar has been set so low in other areas. And I think if you were to do this, the net result is you would literally have like 1 billion people. Like we talk about 10 million people coming into the country. You would have like 1 billion people wanting to come into the country immediately, and it would create a nightmare. You would have cities overrun rapidly. Population would go up so much in certain areas that the infrastructure wouldn't be able to support it. I think the idea of having, it's not open borders, but the idea of immigration is good, right? And we need immigration, and we want immigrants coming in, but you have to have you have to control who's coming into the country and how many come in at one time to make it workable.
Another comment. My thoughts on the government banning things that are bad for us and also having too much control. The problem isn't the government having too much control. The problem is bad people in the government. If someone who is a smart, good person in office and they tell me they want to ban Red 40, do it. I trust them and trust they know and want what is best for us. Yeah, I can do my own research and be more knowledgeable, but I'm not doing that. Plus, whatever Google search I do, I'm just trusting the experts anyway, so what's the difference? My car needs repair. Yeah, I can do my own research and go to school and buy all the equipment needed to fix it myself, or I can just have an expert do it. Nothing wrong with that. That's why we have jobs. Someone responded, I get what you're saying, and I think the mechanic analogy is a good one, but the major difference is that you still have the option of where to take your car or whether or not to even get some type of service done. Obviously, in some cases, it's mandatory to pass inspection, but in other cases, not. So ultimately, it's up to you whether or not you want to put the time into learning about that stuff yourself. But if the, quote, good politicians just ban stuff, then we don't even get a choice of what we want to do. We're just mandated by law to do what they say. Even if they're right, that's still not good in principle, and the, quote, good guys now might always turn bad later if you give them too much power. That's Animal Farm.
And to me, the issue here is you almost get to the central planning kind of concept, because who are the good guys, right? Like
who decides who the good guys are?
Well, that's the thing. My good guy is your bad guy, right? And who's right? Am I right or are you right? Who knows? I agree with the idea that anyone can Google something and, but okay, who's to say that that's correct? I think it kind of comes down to individual choice. And in the end, that wins out, because if a bunch of people make the wrong choice for themselves, they're going to suffer. Right.
I always feel it more of like a natural selection thing. If all of these studies come out, let's take cigarettes, for example. Obviously, we know they're not good for us.
Right.
And there are limits on advertising them and all that stuff now, and more talks about vaping and saying companies can't brand and market their items as like dessert flavored things now and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, but we as consumers, we all know that this stuff is not good for us anyway. And if people choose to do that anyway,
right,
then it's like, oh, I did my part by telling you not to jump off the cliff because you were going to die.
Right.
And you jumped off the cliff. So was I supposed to hold you back from jumping off the cliff? Was I supposed to, what was I supposed to do there?
I'm really surprised that this day and age that like teenagers start smoking. Like that blows my mind. But
gotta be cool.
But here's the thing. What you said is, we all know that this is bad for you. But the thing is, back in the 70s.
I'm talking about right now. I'm not talking about that.
But I'm saying when they started to put the warnings and they started to advertise or block television advertising and things like that, people didn't all know that. And the thing that I think is funny is we ban television advertisements for cigarettes, but not for pharmaceutical drugs, right?
All right. So this person...
That's crazy to me, because, and it goes back to what was just said, right? You could Google it and all of that yourself. But now people watch a commercial for Ozempic and they think, oh, I have to get that. And it's just where I don't think there should be pharmaceutical drugs commercials on TV. There should be pharmaceutical drugs, but not the commercials on TV, just to clarify.
Person responded, you can still have choices, but choices among good options. Why would someone purposely choose a bad, deceitful mechanic? I don't even want that as an option. I still want to be able to choose to do what I want, but dangerous things shouldn't even be an option. Why do they exist anyway? To hurt people and make money? Maybe whoever invented Red 40 didn't know it was cancerous or whatever, but once we found out that it is, why would they be allowed to keep using it? Especially if other options already exist and are being used everywhere else. In other words, a Skittle we get have Red 40, but Skittles in other countries used beet juice or something. In addition, apparently anything charred is carcinogenic. I'm not saying to make it illegal to eat charred broccoli. If you like charred broccoli and you know it's carcinogenic, but you want to burn it anyway, then that's your choice. Perhaps my solution is just more transparency. Maybe make it a law to clearly label dangerous things like they do with a pack of cigarettes. Now there's no excuse of not knowing. Now I'm making my own choice and accepting the consequences. IDK, there are more layers to that too, which complicate things. But yeah, a good point about good turning bad. Yikes.
I think most of this stuff is it's more complicated than most people think. So in other words, if somebody says, well, red dye number 40 causes cancer, right? It's like if you go back and you look at the studies where they find that, it's not always conclusive. And a lot of times it's like they to do the test, they use unreasonably high amounts of the red dye number 40.
But why would you even want, if there's something that has a chance? And for red dye 40 specifically, it's in a lot of things. So you can say, well, yeah, if I just have this Skittle, I'm not gonna die. No, but if you have the Skittles and then you have a whole day of eating stuff like that, it does go up to that.
I don't know, and it's not like I've spent hours looking that up specifically for red dye number 40. But it's like almost anything that you eat in really high volumes, like unreasonably high amounts, is not good for you, right? And can cause cancer.
Yeah, I can just smoke 1 cigarette a day and it's not going to kill me.
Well, I mean, there are people that smoke 2 packs a day and live to be 100 and something.
And I'll just smoke 1. It's everything in moderation, right? All right.
No,
so this person
there's
responded.
a difference. There's a difference.
No, there's
right?
not. This person responded.
Hold on. There's a difference. You can't say something and not let me respond to it. Okay, first of all, any food dyes. It's like, why do we need any food dyes, right? So maybe you eliminate everything.
You don't need food dyes.
But well, then maybe we eliminate everything. But then people would probably be like, ooh, I don't like this color or something
then
like that.
Then don't eat it.
So maybe if we're going to do something, maybe that's what we do. Maybe we say, just there's no reason, unless there's a specific nutritional or something with the flavor, just don't add it.
Okay, we need to, this is the last response to this. I agree with the idea of more transparency. I don't see any reason to not support that since we deserve to know what we're buying, consuming, using. And ultimately, the decision is still up to us. To me, it all comes back to, I don't trust the government to decide these things for me, at least not so much that I'm okay with them making things illegal. Imagine if the current administration made driving any vehicle other than a Tesla illegal and claimed it was because the rest were bad for the environment. Obviously, in reality, we'd know that there's an ulterior motive there. I think there will pretty much always be ulterior motives, even if they're not so obvious. Do we really believe that the food pyramid is as, quote, healthy as possible? Definitely not. Great point. Oh, and that person responded, and that's my point. I don't believe the current administration is full of good people who are smart enough to be making these kinds of decisions. Let us move on to...
Yeah, but hold on. And here's the point.
We don't have time for the airing of grievances today.
There are people that think every administration isn't smart enough to be making the decisions. So the answer is the government should not make the decisions. That's the point, right?
Natural selection. Everybody should jump off the cliff.
It should be very rare.
I don't know. What's your grievance?
If you have grievances, and I'm sure you have.
A grievance is...
Make it quick.
Slow walkers.
You've used this already.
I don't know if I did.
You have?
Well, it's still a grievance that I have.
No, right.
Because, I've been, for Lent, I've been going to church every morning and at early in the morning. And when I'm walking into church, I hate when I get behind a slow walker because then I have to walk awkwardly slow or I have to pass them and then I feel like I'm being rude.
You're going to church.
I know that.
But
do slow walkers not bother you? Are you?
I mean, yeah, when I have somewhere to be, but you're all going to church. It's not.
I'm talking about really slow walkers, people that are like, I don't know, that look like
you're going to church. You're all going to the inside of a building to sit down.
I'm not talking about
and hang out for an hour.
I'm not talking about any random person that's walking slightly slower than me. I'm talking about really slow walkers.
I just feel like that was the worst possible example you could have used.
I'm just saying, that's what I experience every day. Going in, sometimes coming out of church. It's like...
Going out of church makes more sense to be annoyed about because then it's like, okay, now we all actually have somewhere to be. Going in makes no sense.
I have to be in church.
And you're going to sit down 30 seconds later than you would have.
And
that's absurd. That's absolutely absurd.
No, it's awkward because then you have a line of people behind you and you're all walking
and you're all going to the same place.
But what do? Do you walk normal speed and walk over the person? What do you do?
You just walk behind them. What do you mean?
But then you have a whole line of people
that are all going to the same place.
Okay.
My grievance, since I don't have time to get to my list of grievances today, my grievance is this.
Move on.
No, we don't. The episode's over now.
Comments on slow walkers.
I agree that slow walkers are annoying. I don't disagree with that sentence specifically, but your example of slow walkers going into church is insane. Absolutely not.
It's irrelevant.
Especially when you consider that the not to be ageist here, but the people that are walking into a church are probably older anyway, especially when you at the time that you're going, I'm yelling, at the time that you're going in the morning at like 6:30 or whatever. Those are older people. Give them a second.
If someone's clearly, if it's a physical thing,
you're all going to the same place.
No,
my mind is blown
thing
right
and
now.
They're very old. I'm not going to get mad at them then, and I'll walk right past them then, and maybe I'll wave or say good morning, or maybe I'll be like, "Get out of my way, old woman." It depends. But even though most people going to church are older, a lot of them aren't. By the way, they still move at a normal, respectable pace.
There's no such thing as normal.
Normal is I walk at a normal speed.
No, you don't. You walk too fast.
I walk slower when I'm going into church.
Obviously not.
If I get there too early, I have to spend too much time in church. So I don't walk too fast when I'm going into church.
I'm going to eat. I don't understand what's happening right now. I could not disagree with this more.
1, 2, 3. 3. Check. What is that? Hello? Are you there?
What?
Okay. Come in.
No.
What exciting subject? What exciting subject do we have in store today?
Oh,
wait.
God.
This is the Existential Crises Podcast, brought to you today by... Go ahead, Samantha.
Okay. Take it away. Alrighty. Anyway, it's just us. We don't...
By us.
It's brought to you by Jim and Samantha.
Yeah.